All right, let's move on to the sales to production binder. Now, this is a very important function in a company, and when I work with different companies, helping them figure out what's wrong with their production processes, this tends to be one of the places where companies fall short. And that is a good document, or documents, if you will, on what it is that was sold by whoever sold it, whether it's the owner or salesperson, that communicates clearly all the instructions that are necessary for the production team. Now, I do want to comment right here about the differences between a sole proprietor who's a one-man, maybe has somebody that helps him on the job site, versus smaller construction companies versus a very large construction company. So I'm going to start backwards, actually. Very large companies, absolutely critical. There is no way you can manage your production without good communication from whoever sold the job to whoever's going to produce it. Many companies have salespeople that do not have construction experience, so forth like that. And it's critical that they have a guideline or a pattern to use for getting that information out to the people that actually do the work. If you're using trade contractors as your labor, even more critical, because many times they don't understand the way the company does it versus the way they do it for another company. And so there's a really critical need for this communication to take place. You remember I stated that communication is kind of behind all of these things. And again, I just want to emphasize this is one of the places where it really falls apart. The smaller the company, the less critical, although I think it still is very important. And I'll illustrate it this way. If you're a sole proprietor selling the work, meeting clients, actually doing the work yourself, maybe you have one or two people that work with you on the job site, especially if you're not doing the work immediately after the sale is completed, there are things that get forgotten. There are issues, there are items that were brought up by the client that get forgotten until they come back to you and say, you remember we talked about this? And you go like, oh yeah, I remember we talked about that. And then what are we doing? We're backtracking. And so the idea here is, even with a very small company or an individual, the idea of getting everything written down allows the company to actually do what it promised to the client.